Chapter 18 of Eben Holden. This Librivox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Roger Moline. Eben Holden, A Tale of the North Country, by Irving Bacheller. Chapter 18. I ought to say that I have had and shall have to chronicle herein much that would seem to indicate a mighty conceit of myself. Unfortunately, the little word "I" throws a big shadow in this history. It looms up all too frequently in every page for the sign of a modest man. But, indeed, I cannot help it, for he was the only observer of all there is to tell. Now there is much, for example, in the very marrow of my history, things that never would have happened, things that never would have been said, but for my fame as a scholar. My learning was of small account, for it must be remembered I am writing of a time when any degree of scholarship was counted remarkable among the simple folk of Faraway. Hope took singing lessons and sang in church every Sunday. David or Uncle Eb came down for us often of a Saturday, and brought us back before service in the morning. One may find in that town today many who will love to tell him of the voice and beauty and sweetness of Hope Brower those days, and of what they expected regarding her and me. We went out a good deal evenings to concerts, lectures at the churches or the college, or to visit some of the many people who invited us to their homes. We had a recess of 2 weeks at the winter holidays, and David Brower came after us the day the term ended. Oh, the great happiness of that day before Christmas, when we came flying home in the sleigh behind a new team of grays, and felt the intoxication of the frosty air, and drove in at dusk after the lamps were lit, and we could see Mother and Uncle Eb and Grandma Bisnette looking out of the window, and a steaming dinner on the table. I declare, it is long since then, but I cannot ever think of that time without wiping my glasses and taking a moment off. Tip Taylor took the horses and we all came in where the kettle was singing on the stove, and loving hands helped us out of our wraps. The supper was a merry feast, the like of which one may find only by returning to his boyhood. Mac, that is a long journey for some of us. Supper over and the dishes out of the way, we gathered about the stove with cider and butternuts. "Well," said Hope, "I've got some news to tell you. This boy is the best scholar of his age in this county." "That's so?" said David. Uncle Eb stopped his hammer that was lifted to crack a butternut and pulled his chair close to Hope's. Elizabeth looked at her daughter and then at me, a smile and a protest in her face. "True as you live," said Hope. "The master told me so. He's first in everything, and in the town hall the other night he spelt everybody down." "What, in Hillsborough?" Uncle Eb asked, incredulously. "Yes, in Hillsborough," said Hope. "And there were doctors and lawyers and college students, and I don't know who all in the match." "Most remarkable," said David Brower. "Treemenjious!" exclaimed Uncle Eb. "I heard about it over at the mills today," said Tip Taylor. "Mère Dieu!" exclaimed Grandma Bisnette, crossing herself. Elizabeth Brower was unable to stem this tide of enthusiasm. I had tried to stop it, but, instantly, it had gone beyond my control. If I could be hurt by praise, the mischief had been done. "It's very nice indeed," said she soberly. "I do hope it won't make him conceited. He should remember that people do not always mean what they say." "He's too sensible for that, Mother," said David. "Shucks!" said Uncle Eb. "He ain't no fool if he is a good speller, not by a dum sight." "Tip," said David, "you'll find a box in the sleigh, it come by express. I wish you'd go and get it." We all stood looking while Tip brought it in and pried off the top boards with a hatchet. "Careful now," Uncle Eb cautioned him. "Might spoil something." The top off, Uncle Eb removed a layer of pasteboard. Then he pulled out a lot of colored tissue paper, and under that was a package, wrapped and tied. Something was written on it. He held it up and tried to read the writing. "Can't see without my spectacles," he said, handing it to me. "For Hope," I read, as I passed it to her. "Hooray!" said Uncle Eb, as he lifted another, and the last, package from the box. "For Mrs Brower," were the words I read upon that one. The strings were cut, the wrappers torn away, and two big rolls of shiny silk loosened their coils on the table. Hope uttered a cry of delight. A murmur of surprise and admiration passed from one to another. Elizabeth lifted a rustling fold and held it to the lamplight. We passed our hands over the smooth sheen of the silk. "Wall, I swan!" said Uncle Eb. "Just like a kitten's ear." "Exactly," said David Brower. Elizabeth lifted the silk and let it flow to her feet. Then for a little she looked down, draping it to her skirt and moving her foot to make the silk rustle. For the moment she was young again. "David," she said, still looking at the glory of glossy black that covered her plain dress. "Well, mother?" he answered. "Was you fool enough to go and buy this stuff for me?" "No, mother. It came from New York City," he said. "From New York City!" was the exclamation of all. Elizabeth Brower looked thoughtfully at her husband. "Clear from New York City?" she repeated. "From New York City," said he. "Well, of all things!" said Uncle Eb, looking over his spectacles from one to another. "It's from the Livingston boy," said Mrs Brower. "I've heard he's the son of a rich man." "'Fraid he took a great fancy to Hope," said David. "Father," said the girl, "you've no right to say that. I'm sure he never cared a straw for me." "I don't think we ought to keep it," said Mrs Brower, looking up thoughtfully. "Shucks and shavin's," said Uncle Eb. "You don't know but what I had it sent myself." Hope went over and put her arms around his neck. "Did you, Uncle Eb?" she asked. "Now you tell me the truth, Uncle Eb." "Wouldn't say it I did," he answered, "but I don't want to see you go sendin' of it back. You don't know who sent it." "What'll I do with it?" Mrs Brower asked, laughing in a way that showed a sense of absurdity. "I'd 'a' been tickled with it 30 years ago, but now folks'd think I was crazy." "Never heard such fol de rol," said Uncle Eb. "If you move to the village it'll come handy to go to meetin' in." That seemed to be unanswerable and conclusive, at least for the time being, and the silk was laid away. We sat talking until late bedtime, Hope and I, telling of our studies and of the many people we had met in Hillsborough. We hung up our stockings just as we had always done Christmas Eve, and were up betimes in the morning to find them filled with many simple but delightful things, and one which I treasure to this day, the locket and its picture of which I had been surreptitiously informed. At 2 o'clock we had a fine dinner of roast turkey and chicken pie, with plenty of good cider, and the mince pie, of blessed memory, such as only a daughter of New England may dare try to make. Uncle Eb went upstairs after dinner, and presently we heard him descending with a slow and heavy foot. I opened the stair door, and there he stood with the old bass viol that had long lain neglected in a dusty corner of the attic. Many a night I had heard it groan as the strings loosened, in the years it had lain on its back, helpless and forgotten. It was like a dreamer, snoring in his sleep, and murmuring of that he saw in his dreams. Uncle Eb had dusted and strung it, and glued its weaker joints. He sat down with it, the severe look of old upon his face, and set the strings roaring as he tuned them. Then he brought the sacred treasure to me and leaned it against my shoulder. "That there's a Christmas present for ye, Willie," said he. "It may help ye to pass away the time once in a while." I thanked him warmly. "'S a real first class instrument," he said. "Been a rip snorter in its day." He took from his bosom then the old heart pin of silver that he had always worn of a Sunday. "Goin' to give ye that, too," he said. "Dunno's you'll ever care to wear it, but I want ye should have somethin' ye can carry in yer pocket to remember me by." I did not dare trust myself to speak, and I sat helplessly turning that relic of a better day in my fingers. "It's genuine silver," said he proudly. I took his old hand in mine and raised it reverently to my lips. "Hearin' 'em tell about goin' to the village, an' I says to myself, 'Uncle Eb,' says I, 'we'll have to be goin'. 'Tain't no place for you in the village.'" "Holden," said David Brower, "don't you ever talk like that again. You're just the same as married to this family, and you can't ever get away from us." And he never did, until his help was needed in other and fairer fields, I am sure, than those of Faraway. God knows where. Chapter 19.